obviously Korea,
Yes.
it was going crazy in Korea. But in North America, we got there early to the point of like we were telling other people about NewJeans.
Yep.
And that's one of the most viewed or listened to podcasts that we've ever done is that EP on NewJeans. So I want to congratulate myself for putting everybody on. I put you on. I put you on NewJeans, okay? The bunny. All right, welcome back, everybody. This is Bytes, part of the Album Mode podcast. We're talking about the music, the culture, the internet, and the legal troubles that exist in the music culture that we exist in today. My name is Démar Grant, a.k.a. King Grant, a.k.a. The Bunny, a.k.a. The Winner. And I'm here with my esteemed co-host, co-creator, Adriel Smiley, a.k.a. AdrielSmiley.com, a.k.a. The Godfather, a.k.a. Mr. Smiley. Adriel, we are here. It's a little bit of a celebratory event, okay? This episode 200 has just passed with Tyler, the Creator's Chromacopia. We just did it. And we have gotten to a point where we can boast 1 million views.
Yep.
1 million views. We are... I don't even know what to say, really. I didn't think that... I mean, I always wish that we'd get to this point. But I didn't think that... I don't know. I'm like, when will it ever happen? And we're actually here.
Yeah, it's crazy to think 200 album reviews feels like a lot. I think we've probably done more than 200 albums because we have a couple episodes where we've done 2 reviews in the same episode. We used to do that at one time.
Yeah.
Actually, our 5th episode and our 2nd episode, we did Taylor Swift and Logic in the same episode. Crazy. And then we did a whole review. Well, it's not a whole review, but we did a review of Laugh Now, Cry Later, the single, which is funny because Lil Durk, just got arrested.
Yeah.
So crazy times. I think the thing that stands out to me of like the past 200 episodes is some of the artists we reviewed more than once. And I think like this is kind of why I was excited about us doing the pod in the first place, was us talking about music like off the record. Again, anyone who listens to like our year anniversary episode, we would go for hours.
Yeah.
Like it would literally be me and Démar standing in the radio station and 30 minutes turns to an hour, turns to 90 minutes, and we're just talking about, this album, this genre.
What does it mean for that person's career?
Yeah.
What are these two people? Who's winning the battle between this and that? So it was craziness.
And I think my favorite thing about this podcast that I think we've continued to do is kind of treat each album like its own thing. And I think that has been the most impressive thing for the both of us 200 episodes in, is like, just because this album got a 9 doesn't mean you're going to get a 9 next time.
True.
And I think we've had a bunch of artists we reviewed multiple times, like a Taylor Swift, like a Meg Thee Stallion, who this album's really good. We like it. And the next album, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
And so us being able to kind of keep that objectivity from album to album, I think has been pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that it's really, I think Taylor Swift is probably one of the more interesting ones because we were so high on Folklore. We're like, yo, this is like some of the best music she's ever released, blah, blah, blah. Then Evermore came out, and I remember being like, how did we fall so far?
Yeah, so quickly.
I know, so quick, because it was within a year or almost exactly a year.
I think it might have been less than a year.
Yeah. And I was like, how are we making the same sound but worse music? Like the songwriter, she's such on Folklore, she was a brilliant songwriter.
Yeah.
I don't know how we've fallen so far from that and still have not really recovered.
Yeah, like just to recap, like we gave Folklore, you gave it a 9,
Yeah.
I gave it an 8.
That was my album of the year.
And then Evermore, you gave it a 6, I gave it a 4.
Yeah.
And so it's like to see that fall so quickly is pretty crazy. And I think there's a bunch of albums that we haven't reviewed. I think my biggest regret for us is us still not having reviewed a Cleo Sol project.
Yeah.
I feel like she just got some bad luck in terms of releases.
She's dropping on the days whenever like a major artist drops.
Yeah, and I think, at least her past 3 or 4 projects, if you want to include the Salt projects as well, maybe the last 6 projects, I feel like have all been quality.
Yeah.
And for an artist to drop 6 straight good projects, I don't think anyone we've reviewed has dropped 6 straight good projects. we have some people who have been like top tier every time. Like Arlo Parks is probably at our album mode Hall of Fame.
Yes.
They haven't missed. But, Cleo Sol being someone we haven't reviewed yet is pretty wild for me because, again, the run that she is on, 6 straight quality projects, I can't remember anything like that.
Yeah, she's one person I regret not reviewing. I think Planet Her by Doja Cat, we didn't review that either.
Yep.
Because what I think Drake, it's something like Drake or
I think
Tyler
it was
Creator
Drake,
came out on during the same week, and we made a decision that we probably should have just done a double. I think we were not as into Doja Cat at that time. I will openly admit that. I heard because it was Hot Pink. Maybe it was one of, I think we didn't review Planet Her.
Nope.
But I heard Hot Pink and I thought it was cool. And then Planet Her came out and I wasn't like that into it. And then it became a massive, massive moment.
I think also with Planet Her, there was so much music already out from that album that it didn't feel as consequential for us to review. I do remember that of like, hey, we've heard a bunch of the songs already.
Yeah.
Is it as important? But I think we've done a pretty good job. Like, one that I've heard about people mention, that's kind of the most weirdest ones that we've done is Ali and AJ. I don't want to say I regret that project, but I feel like that was a week where we were really
we're scrounging. We were scrounging, bro. But I will say that there were a couple of songs on that I did like.
No. It definitely was like, I think I gave it a 4, you gave it a 5.
Yeah.
But I feel like, that we're kind of, I guess, again, flexing our range. Like, anyone listen to the pod, watches us on YouTube, we'll review basically anything. Like, there's no genre that we're not going to review. But I think that's what I think about all the time of, like, we didn't need to review that one. Like, we could have left that alone. Like,
we could have left it alone, but I didn't want to. I think at that time, we were on a streak of, like, never missing. Never missing a week.
Yep.
And we usually, and even now, we very rarely miss a week. Somebody's got to be sick or something.
Outside of saying, like, probably out of the country is usually what it is.
That's the only time we ever, for real. You have to be out of the country for us to not do it. So I think that was just an interesting time. I remember, I'm trying to think about another really interesting one. I think when we reviewed... I remember when we're one of the people or like leaders on the Nas resurgence.
Yes.
King's Disease, King's Disease 2 and King's Disease 3. We were like, Nas is back and like his music sounds amazing now. Like it's not selling like crazy, but we were like aware. We're like, no, like he's like dropping really, really good shit. The lyricism is still there. Yeah. And finally Hit Boy revitalized his production. So I want to like, that's one of the things that I felt like we were on before a lot of other people, like even just like in the general, like, hip hop sphere, weren't really talking about Nas like that.
Yeah, I think we definitely right away, as soon as King Disease, the first one came out, we're like, okay, we're going to review it. And I think one thing that we've done really, really a good job of is separating the narrative on the internet from the artist. And there's 2 that I think of that we did kind of back to back. That were really important for that was Lil Nas X, Montero. Actually a decent album.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people have an idea of him no matter which side you're on, of kind of what he is and what his music is, but actually quality music on that project. And then right after him, which this was the last time we reviewed this person, one of our shortest reviews, 30 minutes straight, is Youngboy. Sincerely Contrell. We both gave it a 3.5. And he created this zone of like, we're not reviewing him unless something different happens. Yeah. I'm suggesting we put Yeet in that zone as well. Of course, you're on the other side. You think Yeet is the best thing since sliced bread
this year.
But I think that is something interesting that we kind of hadn't always thought of before of like, okay, like, let's just not review this person anymore. Yeah. I don't think that even came up before that because we reviewed Nav, who's one of your most hated artists, and we didn't give him that treatment.
Yeah, that's true. The Youngboy zone became a real thing because it was like, it's not changing. It's the same music over and over, different titles on the track, but nothing is really changing. So I thought I like that, the idea of the Youngboy zone becoming a thing. I do think that maybe soon we should construct the actual album mode Hall of Fame. You brought up Arlo Parks. She's 1,000% in there.
Yeah.
I think that Tyler the Creator is probably also in there. So there's a bunch of people. Actually, yeah, maybe teetering now.
Yeah, I don't know if Tyler's in there because I even think getting an 8 and a 7 on the estate sale is like, that's not Hall of Fame worthy.
Yeah.
2 reviews, I guess 3 reviews I want to bring up because I forgot these even happened. This group is absolutely an album Hall of Fame off of only one project, but we both gave it more than a 9. Both gave it a no skips. Silk Sonic.
Yeah.
9 and 9.5. I think like easy album mode Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Sampha is in there too.
Yeah, Sampha got to be in there. We reviewed only one Ed Sheeran project, and it's funny because he's in that group where like his early work was good.
Yeah,
he was kind of ingenious at a certain point of what he was doing with pop music, and we caught him at the wrong time for this podcast because this might be your lowest score. You gave him a 2.5.
Yeah.
So that one is interesting, and then last but not least, this is something that I have thought about kind of randomly at certain times, and I'm like, people forget this even happened, and this person is in the news right now for separate reasons. Is Kawhi Leonard? The Kawhi Leonard Presents Culture Jam. Yeah, you gave it a 7. I gave it a 6.
I can't. Oh man,
how many people forget Kawhi Leonard put a project out?
I know.
And
I totally forgot about that.
This album still to this day.
You still listen to it?
Not an album full.
Okay.
But there's a couple songs from there that still bang, and it's like, might be one of the better collection of tracks from an athlete we've probably ever heard.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I totally forgot that we had reviewed that. So yeah, that's also one of the better reviews, just because it's such an unorthodox thing. I will say, another artist or group that we caught on to early, NewJeans. I fought for NewJeans.
Fought is strong.
I did.
Yes.
I bring up the receipts. The receipts. Adriel was adamant. It's like, this is album mode. We review albums.
I'm happy you're keeping it real because I wasn't against NewJeans as a whole.
Yeah, it was more the concept.
It was more that it was an EP, and I still feel the same way of like, we should stay away from the EPs. But I think you were right in this one of like reviewing NewJeans was a great move.
Yeah, I'm like, yo, this is going up right now. It's like these girls. I remember back then I was like, I couldn't even tell like the vocals apart. Now I can because I listen to their music pretty frequently. But I was like, we were early on NewJeans because we were reviewing the EP. It was I think EP 2 or EP 1, the one with the like Powerpuff Girls on it, right? And I was like, man, this shit's gonna be amazing. Like, OMG is so good. And we got there, I would say early for North America. Obviously, Korea, it was going crazy in Korea. But in North America, we got there early to the point of like we were telling other people about NewJeans.
Yep.
And that's one of the most viewed or listened to podcasts that we've ever done is that EP on NewJeans. So I want to congratulate myself for putting everybody on. I put you on. I put you on NewJeans, okay? The bunny. So I just want to say that, yeah, that was one of those things that I was really proud of. I'm like, yeah, we caught them early before a lot of people were really onto it.
In the comments, let us know who should be in the Album Mode Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Obviously, we're thinking about it, but if you've been listening to us for any amount of time, who do you feel like we're really high on? You can go back and see the reviews. One more person who I think is kind of an automatic in the Album Mode Hall of Fame. Okay, now I've lost where they were because I just had them here. Oh my goodness.
It's okay.
I feel like Démar right now.
It's okay.
There we go. We actually just saw him in concert. Vince Staples.
Oh, yeah.
Vince Staples is, I think, someone who definitely is an easy candidate.
One of the people I gave a 10 out of 10.
Yep. I think he's an easy candidate for that Hall of Fame. And it's funny because I think there are certain artists who we've reviewed almost quite often, like where other podcasts probably wouldn't. Like Benny the Butcher is one of those where we've reviewed Benny Butcher 3 or 4 times now. And it's funny because I do think his music is important, like in a way.
Yeah.
Even if it's not always, the highest quality.
It's like a counterculture to what is happening in hip hop right now.
Yeah. And then one artist who I want to know if you've had anyone like this who you're probably either higher on them or lower on them, years into doing the podcast. For me, it's Gunna. I'm probably higher on Gunna than I was.
What is that, bro?
than I was like 2 years ago. Like I always thought Gunna was cool. I was a fan of him. But I think now listening to the podcast and like doing a couple of his reviews, Like I probably am more a fan of Gunna now than I was 2 years ago. So, and I think it's because, comparing him to his contemporaries, we kind of overanalyze what he is and what he does. But I think if you put him in the box of his contemporaries, he's basically the best at doing that thing. Comparing him to NBA Youngboy, it's like him and NBA Youngboy is like, two completely different levels.
Yeah.
And it's like, when you look at it like that, it's like, yes, he's not a Saba or a Vince Staples, but for what he is, he's amazing at what he does.
Yeah, I think a person that I've gone down on over time, Post Malone. Post Malone, I was down to a point where, now I'm like at a point where I'm like, I don't know what he's doing with his music anymore. Like I understand what he's doing, but artistically, I feel like it's being stripped bare. Right? And Post Malone, I was high on from Beer Bongs and Bentleys. I like Beer Bongs and Bentleys. I like...
He's in the Ed Sheeran zone.
Yeah.
The good music predates a podcast.
Yeah, predates a podcast.
12 Karat Toothache, you gave it a 3.5.
Yeah, I thought it sucked so bad. And I thought that I'm out on Post Malone. But I listened to early Post Malone. I listened to August 15th.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, still.
Yeah. Beer Bongs and Bentleys listen to all the time. Songs like Rockstar and stuff like that. Congratulations. I love those songs. So yeah, I would say somebody I came up on since we started the podcast is Brent Faiyaz.
Oh yeah, yes.
I used to be very low on Brent Faiyaz.
You're welcome. I'll take credit for that one for sure.
I used to be really low on Brent Faiyaz. I just thought his music was like kind of like aimless is the best way to say it, but like to describe it, because like the lack of drums what made it feel like I'm just like floating away. Like I just feel like I'm just like lost in this space. But when Wasteland came out, that was huge for me. One of my favorite albums.
That was, you had a top 3 or top 2?
Yeah. One of my favorite albums. And it was one of those albums, I think that year, I listened to it all the time.
Yep.
And then the latest album, I can't remember the name.
Larger Than Life?
Yeah, I thought was pretty good too. Not as good as Wasteland. Maybe I just love Wasteland.
Yeah.
But I still thought it was pretty good. One artist / project that is kind of out of left field was Khalid, where it was like Scenic Drive.
Oh yeah.
Where it was like nobody even talks about that mixtape. Nobody talks about it. And we were like, yo, this is probably his best project. Nobody talks about it at all. It's so crazy to me.
And I think that's kind of the blessing of this podcast is we're reviewing the music based on the music.
Yeah.
And I don't think he has kind of any of his biggest hits from that project.
No, dude.
And I agree with you, his best project to me, clearly. And
clearly.
And to think that no one talks about it is like, you kind of see the disconnect from the actual narrative online and the actual music. And I think our podcast is kind of where those things combine and you can see the difference. And the last thing I want us to talk about before we get out of here is Soundbites. Yeah. Soundbites, I think, is the part of the reason why we got to 1 million views on YouTube, because being in Soundbites almost in a way came first. Because Soundbites was what we were doing when we were standing in the station talking for 2 hours. Well, that's what Soundbites really was.
Yeah, for real.
And I think bringing Soundbites to the podcast was a huge deal for us.
Yeah, I agree, because you're right. That's what we are, like, music, like, culture fans. Yeah. Like, we care about who has which, like, who's doing what look. Like, for example, Ice Spice is posted up with Taylor Swift. Like, we're paying attention to that. It's like, okay, what does that mean for both of them? Like, what are they trying to grasp at when it comes to culturally and stuff like that? And that's things that we would talk about in addition to the music. So when we were just doing the album reviews, that was kind of like one half of like the actual conversation that we would have like via text or in real life.
Yeah.
And then it got to a point where it's like, there's so much shit happening. We should just talk about this on the podcast, make his own space.
Yep.
Right. And then that's how Soundbites became its own thing. And, being on the internet, people are talking about just like the shit that happens, just as much as, whether or not I think that the chords on Tyler Creator's latest album is sick, right? So we got to a point where we're talking about, what Ice Spice is doing, Taylor Swift, even that DaBaby short.
Yep.
That DaBaby short.
That was the beginning.
Huge. That was when it was like, okay, like this is like a real thing that we should continue doing, is like all of these soundbite elements just talking about Diddy.
Diddy is Soundbites Hall of Fame. Diddy is in the Soundbites Hall of Fame.
Diddy is in the Soundbites. We shouldn't even be laughing, actually. We should not be laughing. But Diddy Soundbites Hall of Fame, or maybe we'll have what is the opposite? We need to figure out the word opposite for Hall of Fame.
I would say it's Hall of Shame.
Hall of Shame, yeah.
But I do think it's funny that Soundbites started out of a more like, grab the news, what's happening. And I think over time, Soundbites has become really sometimes a negative segment because so many things in the news that are happening have been negative and have been either like violent, depressing, whatever you want to call it. So it's seeing how Soundbites has grown where originally Soundbites was just very like, oh, this is interesting. What's happening here? And like as time has gone on, it's more of, okay.
The problems with the music industry, a lot of the covering the problems or like what like crazy events that like are happening.
Yeah.
That's what Soundbites became. Before it was really just like, did you see like, for example, it's like, did you see like Drake in the magazine Drake?
Yeah,
right? Like, stuff like that.
One of our first Soundbites, T-Pain, underrated, overrated, or properly rated. Like, think about how far we've gone from that to DJ Academic's rape case.
Yeah.
Like, so far. So my hope is in 2025 we can have more kind of positive sound bites and like more good things to talk about. And I want us to do more of the evergreen stuff in sound bites. I think there's so many topics that we've talked about. Like I think about that picture I sent you yesterday of the tier list. Like things like that, the top 100 in rap, top 50 in rap. So there's so many things to talk about that are like positive and just interesting and fun. And hopefully everyone can stop being nasty for a second.
Facts.
So we can talk about those things.
Because that's what it's weird because we were talking about fun stuff and then we were kind of doing like the T-Pain thing.
Yeah.
And then stuff just seemed to be going to shit.
Yep.
And we're like, this is where we're going to be talking on Soundbites. This is what the music industry and culture, what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So we have to talk about it on Soundbites. It's the most sensical thing. So the reason why it's even like that currently is because
that's what's happening.
That's what's happening, right? When there's fun shit happening, we talk about the fun shit. We want to talk about the fun stuff, you know? So hopefully, people start like, stop showing their ass and doing dumb shit. So we can actually just talk about regular stuff, fun stuff that we want to talk about.
Yeah, that would be kind of one of my wishes for the new year coming up.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, our retro reviews. We haven't done that many of them. I think we did MF Doom when he passed.
We did Illmatic.
We did Illmatic, I think the Blueprint, and another one for Hip Hop 50.
Yeah.
I actually like our retro reviews a lot. I think those are so fun because we're looking just back in time at like how we look at an album now, how it is in the moment, and then especially the context of where this artist was at the time. Like, Illmatic was one I always remember because, of course, now it's like a classic album. Everyone loves it.
Yeah.
But Nas was a hip-hop prodigy in a way we really haven't seen since. Like, there's no, like, teenager in hip-hop who it's like, everybody grab them. They're the next. Like, we haven't had that. Maybe, like, Lil Bow Wow's really the last one. And Lil Bow Wow and Nas are the two,
Earl Sweatshirt, to a degree.
Earl Sweatshirt was the closest, for sure. But, he kind of went away right when that was happening. So it's like seeing kind of how unique that is of having like a prodigy in hip hop and as well his album having every big producer at the time on his debut album. Like insane. That, so I hope we can do more retro reviews. I want to see people. I want to see in the comments. Like in the comments, let us know if there's a retro review. We're gonna say before 2010. Let's say before 2010 is an album you want to hear us review. In the comments, let us know. And if you agree with someone, like that comment. If we see a lot of likes on a comment for an album that we can do, we would love to do an old album, kind of go back in time. Because I think those have been really fun as well. Of like seeing how we and again we are doing albums that are basically before our time as well.
Yeah, when we did NWA's
Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah, Straight Outta Compton. That was really interesting to review because we were able to see like how far the skill of rapping came.
Yes.
Because it was like, my name is Démar and I hopped in the car. Like that's really the way that they rapped. It was in the 80s, right? Now you hear somebody like Future, the way they rap, or even somebody like YBN Cordae. The way that they rap is so otherworldly complex, multi-syllables, double entendre, all that type of shit, to what they were how they were rapping, which it was still effective, right? Simple is not, not a bad thing, but it was really like, holy shit. This is what we were listening to hip hop back then. And then, obviously Rakim. I think that would be interesting to listen to a Rakim album and being able to, like, you can compare and contrast the way that NWA sounds next to Rakim, and like this is like the birth of like modern rapping is with Rakim.
Yeah, I'm happy you mentioned Rakim because he was someone who I wanted us to review at that time. We went to NWA instead, but I think that's something this podcast has been almost unintentionally as an educator. And I think there's moments like that where the younger audience, younger fan they may have heard Rakim's name, but they just think he's another old rapper or he's from and it's like, no, he is the reason rap is the way it is. You know, the same way people talk about, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Dr. J as changing basketball in terms of attacking the rim. Rakim is the same way in terms of rap. So I think we've had a lot of moments where we're kind of educating our listeners unintentionally by trying to place context into the music.
Yeah. Flow did not exist before Rakim.
Yeah.
People did not say flow. People were not attempting to try a new flow. The idea of my flow is better than that didn't exist before him.
Yes. Yes.
It sounds so weird to even say that. But it's true. Like, and you can go to any hip hop book, history book, or hip hop artist from that time. It'll say, like, whatever written form of the person will be like, nobody was thinking about flow before Rakim existed.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So he's that important of a figure in hip hop. I'm sure that exists in, other genres where nobody was thinking of, like, you can play a guitar that way, tapping and shit like that with a guitar, But really with Rakim, it was like, this is like the line of demarcation of modern rapping and pre-modern rapping.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes his contribution to hip hop so interesting is I don't think people look at that demarcation of hip hop, happening so long ago. I think some people think that happened in the 90s and maybe the 2000s, but that's really the mid 80s where Rakim said this is, pre-Rakim and post-Rakim.
Yeah.
And hip hop was born in 73, but there's way more time after Rakim than before Rakim. Rakim came in pretty early and
changed everything.
And I think, he is really the blueprint for what we have today. I really want to say a thank you to everyone who's listened to the episodes, everyone who watched us on YouTube, everyone who subscribed, shared it with your friends, posted us on Reddit, on Twitter, wherever you're sharing the show.
Remember when we got posted on Twitter or on Reddit when we were reviewing Taylor Swift?
Yep.
That was crazy.
Yeah. So anyone who's done any posting and sharing of our show, we truly, truly appreciate it. We did not get to this million views without you, 200 episodes without you. So I want to thank everyone who's been following us, rocking with us. I don't know if we have a name for our fans and audience yet. I think that's something they're going to have to figure out for themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know if Nicki Minaj came up with the barbs. So, if you any suggestions, put it in the comments. Let us know. But I want to say a thank you to everyone for just rocking with us for all this time.
Yeah, thank you everybody for coming on this ride with us. Something that we were kind of just kicking it, came up with the idea, and then it kept snowballing and snowballing. The music changed, the art changed. Going from audio to video. Was a thing that was something just like it was cool to do, but then also like, this is like kind of like a big deal. Like the way that people talk about our podcast. Like you'll go to a place like a music space and people like, hey, I heard your review. Or like, I can't believe you said this about that.
Yeah, we're kind of getting G-checked in person for our reviews on a consistent basis. Like
I know anytime we go to anything music related, there's somebody that says, I can't believe you, like, the amount of times that people talk to me about Don Toliver.
Yeah.
Being like, I can't believe you gave Hearthstone Psycho this review or that review. I'm like, why? What's so important about Don Toliver?
No, I think tomorrow I'm going to a couple music events. Yeah. And I'm already bracing myself. I got the Tommy Richmond hate. I had to deal with that a little bit. So I'm ready for whoever wants to come and G-check us because we stand by our scores.
Yeah.
So again.
Yeah, none of it's a shtick, right? None of it's a shtick. Everything that we say, like, I actually believe it.
And I think the one thing that I think people don't realize, which we've said a million times on the show, but I'll say it again, is we don't really share our reviews or anything before we talk on the podcast. No. Like, again, we might share some memes if there's some jokes going around or, like some stats, like Tyler doing 200K. We might share that so we're both aware. But a lot of times, I would say the first 100 episodes, 70% of the time we had almost the same score without even talking about it.
True.
You know, and I thought that was so interesting of like, it's almost like a group think, like organically. And I think that's what people need to realize is, you know, we truly mean what we say. And even if we disagree, you know, we're not coming through on the same idea of like, okay, you're going to give it a 5, I'm going to give it a 4. Like, that's
it's
not
like,
what
you're going to
happens.
disagree with me on this part. You know, we're going to get in a fight. No. And we've even gotten to a point where I think we're starting to diverge more.
Yes.
Now.
Yeah.
Which you would think would be the opposite, actually, would happen. But things like the Yeet review.
That was...
Gunna.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to even think about the past. I don't know. I think it's just like over time, even like Benny the Butcher.
Don Toliver,
and Benny the Butcher too. So yeah, it's become more divergent over time, which is really interesting. I never really thought about that.
You know, I enjoyed that everyone's getting to be on this journey with us, like our own musical journeys individually and as a group and as a podcast and as a music community. Because I think of what you said about Brent Faiyaz, who, you know, anyone knows me, I've been one of the biggest Brent Faiyaz fans for a very long time. And to kind of see like me convert you to Brent Faiyaz in real time on the platform, like, you know, we all went through that together. Like that was something that we went through on the podcast. You went through watching us, listening to us. So it's been a fun ride. I'm excited for 200 more, 1 million more views.
Yeah.
Of course, if you're listening to this, you made it this far, you know where to find us on all the platforms. Album Mode Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Make sure you're subscribed. And until next time, know yourself, know your worth.
Later days.